And of course, before we begin, let's acknowledge the traditional Indigenous custodians of the land upon which we meet and create and share dialogue this evening. We are very lucky to live in Australia on such beautiful earth and land and airways. And we acknowledge that this is a sovereign land under the custody and the stewardship of the Indigenous owners of this particular place that I live in, regional New South Wales. We are very lucky to be here and to share this place. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Okay, our program this evening for the 9th of December. We've settled in, we're at 7:08. We'll move into our zeitgeist report first, where we'll unpack three key collections of cultural signals and pulses that I'm seeing in the economy and in society this week. Anything that I think might be relevant or interesting for you to know about in running your business or writing your policies for the government that you might be running. As we know, Coolnomics traverses culture, business, and government because all three need to work together for a good society and a good economy. Once we move through the Zeitgeist report, we'll give you a moment to start to keep developing your skills in your own intuition of the spirit of the time. Zeitgeist being a German word meaning literally time spirit. So we're teaching you how to feel into the spirit of the time, because if you're going to write a business strategy or run a business or lead a government, you need to have a good feel for where are the people at? What is the spirit of the time? What is coming next? What is happening in the avant-garde? What is the edge? And what is happening in the specific niche or pocket or cultural space that I'm inhabiting in the business that I'm running? Then we'll move into our lecture of, as I've mentioned, Principle 5, Regenerative Economics, and then we'll wrap up with what's coming next in 2026. And again, thank you to those who've joined us on this journey in 2025 for the very first iteration of a new concept. I wanted to do it live. I wanted to create a live connection point between us and you. We're going to work with the zeitgeist, it has to be live. It can't be behind. Live is where it's at, I think, increasingly with the world moving so fast and the news cycle moving so fast. Okay, our Zeitgeist report tonight. Of course, we've got some Homer Simpson, a very zeitgeisty character. All right, now, the colour of outrage. Pantone's Cloud Dancer. It's an off-white colour. It's caused shockwaves across the media, across social media in the last week. A whole collection of responses, but I would say the majority of them negative. And I'm not really here to talk about the colour tonight. A lot of other people have unpacked that. I'll describe why the outrage has occurred and what the elements are. And I'm not saying I disagree or agree with it. But the point that I want to make first of all is that I'm really starting to get a little bit over watching content of people with a POV, a take on a particular thing that's occurred in the zeitgeist. And they're simply repeating the outrage of other people rather than actually making sure that they're going to the source of the news item or the movement of the zeitgeist and checking that their perspective is first of all informed by an accurate source of information. So people are outraged. Well, the primary zeitgeist sort of tone is that people are outraged because potentially, and I'm not saying this is or it isn't, because it's very much a subjective take, that by Pantone choosing their colour of the year, which they always do, the major, the colour agency of the globe, by choosing white as the colour of the year is a dog whistle, heralding or celebrating or welcoming fascism, authoritarianism, the depletion of colour, because traditionally colour has served as a symbol and a tool of dissent or pushback against the limitation of the authoritarian class. That's fair. We're in a very intense moment, time, era, iteration of the zeitgeist where we see a flattening of culture. We see all of the things that are happening in the US that are not particularly sophisticated or intelligent in their cultural positioning. So I think it's important that we're always being very aware and continuing to apply the pressure of what might be happening from the government top down or from business top down to the people. I'll always agree with that. I'm an activist from way back. We always need to be holding power to account. But the thing I want to say here is that if you go to the source of this particular item, Pantone itself, and there's two elements to this. You need to make sure you go back to the actual release, the announcement, all of the language, all the intentionality around why they chose this particular color. Cloud Dancer. And also, if you want to say it's not a color, white and black are not colors, first of all, that's semantics. Secondly, this is not pure white. This is a tonal color. This has color in it. This is all of the colors together that become white. It's got a certain amount of black and yellow in it to create this color. The intention of Pantone itself, the agency, the source of this news item, was to create, to deliver something into the zeitgeist that was representing a clean slate, serenity, hope, ascension. That was my take when I first saw the color. I went, yeah, touche. There's been people saying, why isn't it dark green, for example, or a light color of blue? You know, colors that are about nature. Yeah, they're fair offerings or questions to be asking, but I actually think this is an ascension above the nothingness. We're moving into the nothingness. On an esoteric level, we're moving from a 9-year into numerology. We're moving from a 9-year, which is about the endings, the snake, the shedding, the destruction. We're moving into a year 1. They're big times. That's not an easy time. Starting from 1 is powerful and essential. We're moving into an essential, fundamental time of questioning the very nature of our society, questioning the nature of our economy, questioning the nature of power. I thought white made a lot of sense. I don't know if I agree. Sorry, the other point that I'm going to make is, so the actual intentionality, the written word around the announcement, and sure, of course, we need to question the source and we need to apply cynicism or skepticism to any piece of information. I'll always agree with that. But I want you also to consider the actual human beings in positions of power at Pantone. The CEO is a woman of color. First of all, it isn't a white middle-aged man representing the authoritarian state. Again, gender and race are never complete answers for someone representing particular ethics. But let's just start there. Skye Kelly has, provided a response to the world's feedback on the color and has iterated the intentionality behind it. Besides Skye Kelly, the actual CEO of Pantone, the agency, their leadership team and broader employment demographic is incredibly diverse and inclusive in its nature. Pantone must be, otherwise it wouldn't be on zeitgeist. So before we just keep repeating the outrage of other people, because it does well with intent, with engagement, I want you to go back to the source. I want you to make sure that whatever POV or take you are providing, contributing to the zeitgeist, is based upon an accurate source, not just repeating an outrageous statement of someone else. I want you to apply rigor. I want you to apply critical thinking to the perspective that you are adding to the zeitgeist. Okay, next one. That's Pantone. Let's see where that goes. I think we need all the hope and the ascension. I know my world is all about ascension at the moment. Seeing as I work with the zeitgeist, it's very intense sometimes. And the only way that I can do this work is to ascend to the next level of resilience and perspective and objectivity as much as we can. Okay, next one. What have we got? I haven't done a great job here on this slide. Sorry, it's a bit hard for you to read, I think, on your screen. Unless you've got it big on your screen, you'd be able to read these memes for sure. But let me describe it to you. This is probably the biggest pulse that I'm seeing at the moment because it's existential. Money. Let me read them out to you first of all. The first meme says, I fucking warned you, dude. I told you, bro. And it's around Marxist. It's a take on Marx critique and analysis of capital production. So, Marxism as an ideology and the idea that the capital system was never going to work. It was always going to hit its limits, which we're seeing. We're now in late stage capitalism. Okay, let's move on to the second meme there. That's not a meme, but it's another take. What happens when culture becomes a commodity? I don't know about you, but there is, and sorry, I'll make the point about that first meme on the left, the note down the bottom. Sorry, I apologize that you can't see it very well. It says, the co-founder of Kashi, which is a business in the space, is saying the long-term vision is to financialize everything and create a tradable asset out of any difference in opinion. Okay, which brings us to our next one here about culture becoming a commodity. And then let's go to the final piece and I'll tell you what I'm talking about here. This meme says, for the capitalist bros, Yes, we're using meme language. We're using colloquial language talking about capitalism. That is new. Oh, the intersection of memes with the economy. That is new. That is another shift forward. Capitalism has died. There is no free market. We are in a completely corporate controlled, data driven economy where artificial scarcity is created to keep us in survival mode and exploit our labor. There is no breathing room left. There is no culture without money. There is no cool without money. That didn't used to be the case. There is nothing without money. I'm being extremist. I'm being hyperbolic. Of course, there are things. There is our human heart, our breath, our lives, our imagination. But more and more, our minds and our thoughts and our work being colonized and capitalized. And that is not sustainable. That is not correct. The human must be human. The human must breathe and have freedom and the possibility of thought without money. We have financialized every single inch of our planet and our thinking and our activity. That is incorrect. And that's why we're hitting this ceiling of late stage capitalism, swallowing the world whole, and this push, this destabilization, these big questions being asked across social media right through to government, and the feeling of potential collapse of a society and a global economy because it's not working. Our economy is not human-centered. And this is the premise of our lecture tonight of regenerative economics. You can't just keep extracting. You can't just keep capitalizing. It has to circle back. It has to double back on itself and start to regenerate. Otherwise, nothing works. No one has a job. There is nothing to make or do or build or create. And we have the billionaire class, we have the, autocracy and this techno-feudalist reality that we're living in that means the world is not working. And I know it's tense, intense. Sorry. I mean, I'm not doing it. Sorry for all of us. We have to live in it. We have to raise our families. We have to do our jobs. We have to come up with beautiful art and create spaces to breathe in a time that is so difficult. So well done. Well done for even surviving it. It's going to get better, but it's going to be intense while we get there. Okay, so capitalism has a limit. We're watching that limit be bumped into more and more each day. You cannot commodify and financialize every single part of the human experience. That is incorrect, inappropriate, unethical, unsustainable, and it's going to have to change. Okay, finally, wow, totally different vibe. Esoteric dude bros. I really did wonder specifically if this would happen, and I'm watching it happen now. This guy on the left is literally called the blue collar astrologer. And then you've got this guy on the right, even more of a dude bro. The one on the left is an Aussie guy who has some interesting astrological and esoteric takes. The one on the right, super masculine. Look at those aesthetics, really old school. But I knew that this would occur, that even men, the masculine, because let's think about it, the esoteric and astrological space is dominated by the feminine traditionally. But I knew that eventually men and, the blue collar blokey dude bros would have to start entering the esoteric space. It was only a matter of time. This is the way that zeitgeists work. You see signals, you see movements until you reach a critical mass, and then you have a new norm that occurs. So I think we're going to see this even more next year. And this links into when I was talking a few weeks ago about men becoming more comfortable with the way that they're dressing and traditionally feminine elements around fashion and expression. Yeah, things need to push up to a point so far until they burst over into the next level. So we're going to see much more of a norm, and it's crazy that it isn't a norm, by the way. This should be the norm. We're going to see more and more of a normalization of men having feelings, men having engagement with esoteric and somatic and astrological topics, because these are not gender specific topics. This is normal and human to consider. What do we think and feel? And men having a purpose beyond just being a provider and a protector, because as we're seeing, the role of the masculine is crumbling. We have this male loneliness epidemic. The role of the masculine is crumbling. It's going through a destruction process because its current version in society is reaching its limit. And we're crossing over into a more expansive, more ascendant position and role for men and women to play. Don't be afraid of evolving. Don't be afraid of being both. That is how things change. That is correct and normal. That is iteration. To have more dimensionality, more intelligence, more sensitivity and depth in what we represent. Okay, that's the Zeitgeist Report for this week. Now, change of pace, let's consider our live audience zeitgeist. We're considering how we feel, what our take is on the spirit of the time. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the word zeitgeist, we'll often talk about it as a cultural zeitgeist. On the most essential level, the word zeitgeist is a German word translating to time, spirit, literally. And so whenever we work in business strategy or policy writing or creativity, artistry, we're always going to be connecting in some way with the spirit of the time. We're either going to do it successfully or not. And the more successfully we do, the more we link into the cultural flywheel and become a part of history, become part of moving society forward. If you want to be one of the best artists, one of the best government leaders, one of the best business leaders, you need to become very literate with what is the spirit of the time. And what is the spirit of the time now and what is coming next? That is the avant-garde, the advancing guard. The etymology of the word avant-garde literally means the advancing guard, the advancing army, the ones that go before. So if you want to be part of the cutting edge, you want to build your literacy in the zeitgeist. And so we have a moment now. You can put your answer in the chat, but sometimes people don't like to do that. They just want to see and feel it in their bodies. Maybe it's not even ready for a word yet. But I want you to take a moment to consider, what does the spirit of this time feel like to you? I want you to feel into your body. This is quite broad. We've got three layers to this. This is layer one. Layer one, what does the spirit of this time feel like to you? I mean, I'm sure a lot of us would say it feels pretty chaotic, pretty challenging, pretty destabilizing, pretty destructive, pretty frightening. But also, the nature of humanity and human beings is to adapt. We're going to adapt, and we're only going to adapt by ascending, by building our resilience and going to the next level. So there is hope. There is creativity. There is imagination. What we're currently living in hasn't been working for quite a while. This is good that we're pushing up to the next level of discomfort to force change to occur. So I think we're in an era of resilience building and ascension. But I wonder for you, what does the spirit of this time feel like to you? Okay, the next layer of this question would be, what does your spirit? So we can have a broad societal zeitgeist. We can also have a zeitgeist of a country, of a state, of a community, of a subculture. And you can also have a personal zeitgeist. What is your personal zeitgeist made up of? And it's generally not made up of one thing. It's made up of a thread of things. So I'm encouraging you to build your literacy and your fluency and your comfort in being able to identify, feel, and name what is the spirit of what is your spirit feeling in this time? What is your personal zeitgeist made up of? My personal zeitgeist is very determined. My threads are made up of determination and beauty. This week, I always provide my answer as to how I would describe it. I've given different answers each time, and this week I'm feeling very determined, laced up, forward motion, too late. Go where the energy is flowing. Use your courage to create things. Use your courage to follow your destiny. Use your creativity to create something beautiful, which for me is Coolnomics. Fiona, busy. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people in the chat tonight who would be answering the same in December, early December 2025. It's a hectic time. Okay, finally. We want to set a North Star. How would you like the spirit of our next era to feel? The next era of the world, if it's very intense right now, one of the mechanisms of humanity, of the human mind, of the human spirit, is to look for hope, to set a North Star of what would be better. Fiona's feeling tired and busy. Fair enough. How would we like the spirit of our next era to feel? My answer for this has been alive, which is probably a bit ambiguous. I'm probably copping out by saying that, but that's been the best answer I've had until now. Whereas this week, I feel like I've evolved since last week, evolved to the next level of maturity and resilience in myself as a leader. And I think how would I describe it of how I would like the next spirit of our the spirit of our next era to feel? Of course, alive. Maybe when I say alive, I mean fleshy, safe, joyful, free, autonomous, connected, good, happy, positive, to feel good in one's spirit. And good doesn't mean easy. Good doesn't mean perfect. Good doesn't mean completely comfortable. This is why I always return to the word alive, to be fully alive, to not deny any of our humanity, to not deny any of our mortality, to not deny any part of the human experience. The human experience is uncomfortable. The human experience is challenging and confusing and always moving and unrelenting. I know. I don't remember signing up for this, but fine. If we're here, let's be fully conscious. Let's be fully aware. Let's be fully part of the society that we live in. Let's contribute to the history of our world. Let's be aware of the zeitgeist that we're contributing to, and let's do everything we can to create beauty and practical outcomes while we're here. Okay, let's move into our lecture, hot nerds. Now, let's just ground ourselves before we do that. For anyone who's joining us this week for the first time, and for anyone who would like to be reminded, Coolnomics has 5 master principles. Coolnomics is a body of work that I've developed across my 20-year, actually I think it's 24-year career now as an artist, business person, and leader in these spaces. Coolnomics is made up of 5 principles. The first 3 set the cool, the resonance, and the culture. For something to be Coolnomics, and it's on a sliding scale, we can score a business. That would be one of the next iterations of Coolnomics, would be for me to start showing you how to score your own business, score another business to see where your weaknesses lie. Is my excuse me, my microphone, excuse me. First 3 principles. You want to build something that is culturally relevant to the zeitgeist, relevant to the world around you. You want to build something that is emotionally potent and and intelligent, something that resonates with people, makes some people feel something. Remember about feeling. Let's allow ourselves to engage with the suppleness and the humanity of what we're creating and the way it connects to other people. And then finally, you want to build things that are authentic and credible to their source, things that are original, things that champion excellence, things that feel true and good and magnetic, appealing, proud to be associated with. Okay? And then the nomics, the money, the value, the economic side of things, which means we want to build things that are commercially viable, which was our lecture last week, which is that's an MBA lens, how to slice and dice your product, how to run a product ecosystem to increase your scale and to serve different markets, understanding how to build your top line revenue, how to retain your profits, and how to do it in a way that is sustainable and always evolving in line with the world. And finally, we want to build things that are regenerative and sustainable. The original thesis of Coolnomics, it was going to be a PhD, but instead I've turned it into a public research project, now a business knowledge system here with you. The original thesis of the Coolnomics PhD was quantifying the economic value of cultural cool and utilizing it for social and environmental good. Because the key nugget that caused me to really commit to Coolnomics as my next key body of work was I started to look around and I looked at people like Greenpeace and guide dogs, charities, people doing good, B Corps, purposeful businesses, and I saw the limitations. I saw why are those things not more popular, more successful? What's going on with the purposeful business space? And we've got purposeful businesses, but they don't always succeed. They don't always make the money, which means they close down. I realized that it was cool that was missing. You need to have wholesomeness and edge. We're going to save the world. We're going to make it cool. We need to build cultural momentum until it is absolutely undeniable and it forces and causes and naturally allows the zeitgeist to move the economy in the ways that it needs to. Okay, we're going to go deeper into that today. in our lecture. Now, the resonance equation always says that for something to be cool, for something to resonate, and in Coolnomics, cool is not an aesthetic, cool is not skateboarders, cool is not Supreme, cool is not Timothy Chalamet. They are examples of cool. They are expressions of the cultural zeitgeist. Cool is actually resonance. It's that natural moment when someone stands back and looks at something and very naturally says, that's cool. For me, it's that moment, that precious moment. You can't force it. You can't manufacture it. You've just got to make something that is relevant, emotional in the right ways, and credible. And if you get those things right, it results in resonance within someone's human heart. I like it. I want it. I want to be part of it. Okay. Excuse me, I need some non-alcoholic beer. Got a croaky voice tonight. Okay, 7:32. We're on time. Settle in, have a little sip of drink, have a mouthful of your dinner. Stop scrolling on TikTok and pay attention. Okay. Our lecture tonight, Regenerative Economics. I've been really excited for this one. This rounds it out. This brings the ethics. Now, we've spent the last 6 weeks traversing the principles of Coolnomics. We've gone from cultural relevance to commercial viability. We've talked about culture, emotion, credibility, and we've talked about how those things convert into value. And remembering that value, I didn't put a dollar sign there because value is not just money. Economics is the entire system of value, is an entire value system. It's supply and demand, it's the supply chain, it's social value, well-being value, environmental value, and monetary value. But I want us to remember and think more deeply about value in its own right. And maybe something I'm going to say right now is some of the things I'm going to talk about tonight in terms of some of the great ideas of regenerative, given where we're at with society at the moment, everything being so intense and cynical and difficult, you might think, what's the point of this? All of this sounds great, but society doesn't support ethics. Yeah, well, that's the point of Coolnomics, is to bring this into the zeitgeist more. This is just the beginning of Coolnomics. We're introducing ideas, we're introducing dialogue, we're encouraging dialogue, we're teaching people how to do it, and we're asking questions about the system at large, longer term. Okay. Now, we've understood more about value and culture and emotions. Now it's time to ask ourselves, what kind of value lasts? What is sustainable human behavior? How can we question our systems and build new systems that restore what we already have, restore what we take, rather than just extracting more and more and more? And I mean extracting from both the environment as well as society. How do we generate systems that give back, that become circular and regenerate themselves? And how are we going to save the world using the power of cool? Okay. So in Coolnomics, we define regenerative economics as it's not about short-term hype. Resonance is not about short-term, what's cool, and then it's suddenly out. No, we're talking long-term resonance. We're talking about what would be resonant now about our idea, that would also be fundamentally cool about it, fundamentally resonant, that would see us through, and we can keep updating elements of it to ensure that it remains relevant, whilst building something that is compounding in relevance and value. Regenerative economics through the lens of Coolnomics is about building momentum that is centered on the human. And it's about the systems at large. It's the people, it's the planet, and it's the profit. And increasingly, this is not an option. We have to do this now. It's interesting that I really felt the urge to push Coolnomics forward. And sadly, but also interestingly, I'm watching that the world needs this kind of thinking of cool and regeneration in the same sentence more and more. This is the time right now. I talked about it in the Zeitgeist report earlier that we're reaching, the limits of late stage capitalism. We've got people questioning class, people questioning the economy, people not questioning anymore in terms of ideology and experimental thought. No, they're questioning it because they literally can't afford to live. They're questioning it because they're tired, they're exhausted by a system, an economy that doesn't support humanity but crushes it. People want equity. People want joy. People want meaning. These are normal human things that people are always going to want. People are starting to question their jobs. What role am I playing in this economy? What role, and they might be an employee asking that question about their job, and they might decide to leave their job because they want to have more autonomy and they want to contribute to the economy in a more intentional way. Then you also might have entrepreneurs asking questions about what is the role of my business in this economy? What is the nature of the product that I'm bringing into the world? How could I do more that is purposeful, not just profitable? Because increasingly, profit that is unethical is becoming less and less desirable. And yes, we're in this break point right now of the billionaires and autocrats or tech leaders dominating. The economy is not ethical yet, but I can tell you it's going to have to become more ethical as late stage capitalism fails us more and more. So we're asking questions around the mood of the time, and this is an existential pulse itself. This isn't just a cultural pulse or a social pulse about a trend that's moving through. This is the entire system, the entire resistance of the economy and the way that it interacts with the zeitgeist. We consider, the zeitgeist, think of it like the vertical, always flowing. Think of the economy like the horizontal or the X and Y axis. They're always moving through and intersecting with each other. That moment is what Coolnomics is. So don't worry if you get exhausted by always having to ask existential questions. It's normal. You'll build your resilience. Okay, let's go to our most essential, fundamental definition of regenerative economics. Let's go to our friends in Switzerland, to the Sustainable Development Network. So the official definition of regenerative economics is obviously not my idea. We are contributing to the lineage of some of the ideas. I'll talk about some of the leaders of regenerative economics in a moment. We are adding into the lineage of what it is to have an economy that regenerates. So it's a holistic, dynamic system that fosters renewal, restoration, preservation, and net positive impacts across ecology, economics, and social systems. And it necessitates transformational change. And for anyone who works in change management or transformation, I've done that in corporate settings. It's such an art to lead a transformation. There are phases to it. There are practices to it. There are protocols. You can't move too fast. You need to get people on board. You need to utilize the zeitgeist to move naturally to cause critical mass and critical widespread transformation. This is going to happen easily, and it's going to have to happen on an individual level, organizational level, and societal level. Governments, it's going to have to be cultural leaders, business leaders, and government leaders working in together to achieve a world that works for us. I don't want to latch onto any ideas too tightly tonight. Let yourself be in a philosophy sort of salon. Let yourself take it in. Let yourself consider. This was a big topic for me to put together this weekly lecture. Where do I start? It's so big. I don't have all the answers. It's not about having the answers yet. It's about brokering a conversation. It's about encouraging a dialogue. It's about bringing new words into our lexicon to utilize and giving us permission to think in this way. This is what's cool. This is what's important. Yes, we have to be regenerative. Okay, we want systems that heal as they grow. We want systems that feed as much as they take. And we want to leave no trace. We want to leave things better than we found them. I mean, a lot of this is obvious, but it's not occurring. So it's obviously not obvious enough, and we don't have enough people talking about it, and we don't have it integrated into society enough of people talking about regenerative. It's a pipe dream at the moment, and I'm determined to bring it into the heart of the zeitgeist and make it cool and normalized to talk about this at the pub, to be on the picket line in both a metaphorical sense as well as a philosophical sense in our own minds. This is where philosophy meets the economy. I studied philosophy for 2 years, about a year ago, and it changed my brain. It changed my mind. It gave me a structure to consider. It taught me what Plato was thinking about. It taught me what Seneca was thinking about. It taught me what Marcus Aurelius was thinking about. It also taught me about Eastern philosophy. And my point tonight is not about this philosopher says this. No. Philosophy as a practice. Considering, maybe we'll go on to the next one. Oh no. Anyway, my next slide would have brought us into that. But it's considering how we think about things first. Before we even move into practical outcomes, let's encourage ourselves to use critical thought and take a philosophical approach to an economy, not just this is how it's always been done, so that's the way it has to be done. No. Philosophy invites us to ask why and how and what would that mean and who would it involve and what do we stand for and what are our morals and ethics. Coolnomics is inherently ethical in its basis. It's not puritanical. It invites us to hold nuance between this version and the next. but Coolnomics was always ethical in its basis. Now, let's acknowledge some of the founding people of this lineage, these areas of thought. John Fullerton, of course, wrote the book Regenerative Economy, created one of the master frameworks, some of the key principles for us to follow when we're considering regenerative approaches to economic growth. I'm sure a lot of you would have heard of donut economics. Kate Rathworth is the author of the donut economics model, the idea that humans, first of all, we want to have an economy that is considering the planetary limits, that we can't just keep it taking from nature. We have to give back to nature. That's why when you think about people going to Mars, like, sure, again, I'm always into innovation and new ideas, but we can't go to Mars with the idea that we're just going to use up this planet and go to another planet. Absolutely not. That is a stupid idea. I could use a more sophisticated word, but I really I don't have a lot of respect for people who don't have ethics in their business thinking. Then also Daniel Christian Wall writes a really good Medium column about regenerative cultures and new ways of thinking about holistic approaches to economic growth. And finally, I mean, there's a bunch of people in this space. I just wanted to call out for tonight. Indigenous people of the world know more about regenerative systems, life systems, and you could say economic systems too, not necessarily money, but value systems, more than maybe any other cultural group in the world. Those that are indigenous to the earth, to the land, to the water, have regenerative and sustainable practices built into the very fabric of what their culture represents, the very storytelling. Think of the Indigenous custodians of Australia. Think of their Dreamtime stories. Think of their practices in terms of the way that their societies work and preventative bush care and bushfire prevention, for example. I mean, there's a million examples, but I mean, I work with Indigenous brands through Coolnomics, writing strategies for some Indigenous brands that are also luxury brands and part of the cutting edge of the zeitgeist. And it's so beautiful to even be around the energy of people from Indigenous cultures. It puts a lump in my throat. We're so lucky to even encounter Indigenous people of the land. And so I want to acknowledge that we can learn so much. I'm not the first person saying this. I am adding to the idea that we need to listen much more deeply to Indigenous people. They know what needs to be done here. But colonial, patriarchal, and capitalist structures have hidden and diminished a lot of the knowledge and language and ideas in those spaces. Okay, now I published a TikTok last week about Zoran Mamdani, the new Democratic Socialist mayor of New York City, a really interesting person in terms of Coolnomics. And the comment section in TikTok was so obsessed with communism, for example. So I thought, let's just cover this off tonight. People are so obsessed with the ist or the ism that, no, if it's socialism, then it's communism, and that doesn't work. Okay, whoa. First of all, you can't just use historical examples to define the limitations and capability of an ism. And secondly, and more importantly, I am not interested in getting caught up in one ideology, one body of work. Capitalism, communism, and democratic socialism have pros and cons, all of them. Even democratic socialism has its limits. It's putting people more at the center, humans at the center of the system. But there are still limits in terms of it being largely market-driven and growth-based and extractive. So I want to actually just open up our minds tonight. I'm not going to tell you whether we should be capitalism, communist, or democratic socialist, because I don't think any of them really serve us particularly well. We're in a time of complete transformation, existential question asking, the intersection of ethics and economies, and humans at the very center. And you know where the answer lies? Becoming more philosophical and developing our critical thinking, developing our intelligence, developing our emotionality, getting therapy, having leaders that have done the work on themselves to heal the harm within their spirit, so they are driven to design systems that are better for humans. I'm going to unpack this more. But yes, we'll probably share a carousel of this. Excuse me. I don't know why I've got a croaky voice tonight. Excuse me. But yes, We don't want authoritarianism. We want systems that work for society, obviously. Okay, let's just cover that off. Now, what's getting in the way? Now, when we talk about, it was actually Yvon Chouinard, I'm going to talk about him later tonight, the founder of Patagonia, and he will often say, and many leaders in regenerative economics talk about the fact that by and large, humans want to do the right thing. So when we're talking about resonance, I'm talking about the most fundamental resonance the most fundamental resonance level of humanity. People like Donald Trump got into power because they did resonate with a part of the zeitgeist. You can't deny that. Donald Trump is an example of Coolnomics. Coolnomics is not always ethical, but it's exploring resonance in its most essential form. If we can move society into a position where we have a more healed society, where it's resonating on a different frequency, yeah, I'm getting really esoteric for a moment, but the world is esoteric and tangible. It's both. We need to be able to move in a direction that is truly resonant. People want to do the right thing. People want an economy that serves them better. People want good culture. That is obvious. So why isn't it happening? Okay. It's for structural reasons, systemic reasons, it's inertia, it's legacy. Let's break it down. I've got six barriers that I've defined for you tonight. At the moment, we think in a very linear way. It's produce it, sell it, produce it, extract it, produce it, waste it. That's it. Once you extract it from the earth and productize it and sell it to humanity, and then it can't be used anymore, it becomes waste. We don't have circularity built into the entire design system. And that's why we need Coolnomics, because Coolnomics holds the space for both design as well as commercial structure. It's both. So we think in a very linear sense at the moment, and we want to start thinking in a circle. When I design this thing, or when I extract this thing from the earth or from a person, whether it's creativity or whether it's uranium, and then I turn it into a product, and then it is no longer needed, or it's ready for its new life, what happens then? How can we bring it back to the beginning again? Okay, we want to start thinking in a circular way. So again, we're on the thinking level first before we're in the execution level. Okay, I better keep up to speed on this. We're at 7:49. Okay. Secondly, business is addicted to growth. So 6 years ago when I did my MBA, the premise was about growth at all odds. It was just growth for the sake of it. And I could not help but ask the philosophical question, why? Why is growth the one and only measurement or principle that drives everything in business in a best practice MBA space? That is not logical to me. That is not, what's the purpose of that? If you're growing in an extractive economy, of course it's not going to be sustainable and it's going to be bad for the environment and people. It's not logical. We need to consider whole new metrics for how good the society feels in the economy that serves it. Vitality, not just more. More is greed. More is ego. More is self-serving. More is competition that is self-conscious and weak and cowardly. We want to grow businesses that are ethical, that give back, but that's only going to work if they're cool and relevant, and only going to work if we can change the economy at large over time. Okay, keep going. These are big topics. I know I've done my best to bring them into some bite-sized pieces for you tonight. All right, you also just can't cool wash it. Okay, you can't just do something and pretend that it's authentic or pretend that it's greener or more sustainable. It truly needs to be. The language needs to be consistent with the origin of the idea. If we try to cool wash something and try to pretend that it's better, but it's actually not, we're going to lose trust. We're going to erode the very premise of a credible connection to the market being community, market being society. So we can't just cool wash it. And I'm never here, like when I first developed the idea of Coolnomics, people said, oh, cool, are you going to come into our boardroom and tell us how to make something that's cool? Or you're going to tell us what's cool. Excuse me, got a bit of dust. No, I can't tell you what's cool. I'm going to teach you how to fish. I'm going to tell you how cool works. I'm going to teach you what cool is. I'm going to teach you about resonance. And then you're going to apply that to your situation with your own intelligence, so you bring something original and deep to the space. You can't cool wash it. You can only learn how to build things that are more resonant on the most essential level. Okay, the next one I find really interesting. I'm really passionate about. We think of the economy in such a clinical way. We think of the economy and we think of money as purely a technical thing, a thing that is separate to us, a thing that is just numbers. No, an economy is numbers that are connected to people. People that are good and bad, people with strong and weak ethics. But an economy is actually more human than we recognize that it is. And if we keep on pushing away and creating separation between the people and the money and the system, it's never going to change. We need to understand that the cultural zeitgeist, the feeling of the time, the spirit of the time is shown in the economy. And we can't heal a system if we don't connect with it emotionally and start to feel into. I know I'm getting a bit esoteric for a moment, but again, a great business person needs to have an esoteric side to them if they want to be dimensional and part of a living world. We can't heal a system if we don't feel it. Okay, better keep going. 7:53. I might go 5 minutes over, so allow me. I'm sorry, but I'm going to give you a heads up that I might go 5 minutes over tonight. We don't have a lot more to go, but settle in until 8:05. Okay. This is where we bring the philosophical space. I want you to start learning more about philosophy as a practice. I want you to start Googling that. Like, for example, like in the most tactical level, I want you to Google what is philosophy, not what did Seneca say or Artemis. No, I want you to consider taking a philosophical mindset to the business that you are building and the policy that you're writing. And I want you to allow more depth, more dimensionality. And I'm going to talk to you about philosophical business building in a moment. I've got some examples for you. Finally, ethics without critical mass won't get us there. Ethics are becoming more and more cool, right? Black Lives Matters, 2016, we saw a huge shift forward. We saw a huge shift in consciousness, recognizing the racism, for example, held within systems. It's cooler than it used to be kind. It's cooler than it used to be emotionally intelligent. It's cooler than it used to be to even consider the people around you and not just be self-obsessed and not just be consuming unconsciously. But we're not fully there yet. And the only way the world is going to change is by gathering together hardcore momentum. We're already in the midst of it, by the way. It's already happening around us. I'm just bringing it to our attention so we can more actively engage in it, both as a citizen and a business builder. We're going to need mass cultural momentum where the government has no choice but to listen and change its policies. The economy has no choice but to show where society is moving towards. It's not pretty. It's not easy. I wish it wasn't like this, but here we are. We need to play an active role in making the world a better place, and we need to reawaken public will, goodwill. You've got it inside of you. I see you. I know that it makes you sad to see the way the world is where it's at. Yes, you're sad, you're overwhelmed, you're paralyzed, and you're going to be an active participant in making the world a better place within the capacity that you have each day. And that's okay. All right, there's six of the things that are stopped. Of course, I could sit here and talk about billionaires and Trump and politics, of course, but there's a million TikToks already talking about that. I want to talk about it on a fundamental level rather than getting caught up in outrage and arguing about what we think the problems are in terms of who the person is. No, these are philosophical, fundamental problems that we need to be able to face and move through. Okay, how do we do it? How do we actually do this? How do we actually change things in our own businesses to move in the right direction? First of all, it's a worldview, which I've already raised, that it's philosophical. So we're now talking about philosophical business design. You know about business model design as a practice. I specialize in that. I design business models that are cool and relevant, commercially viable, to help people make the most amount of money they can out of their cool ideas. So that's business model design, but I want you to consider philosophical business design, which is the actual viewpoint that you take into the way that you design the commercial and social model of what you're building with your business. So it's about having principles. So it's a worldview, and you're going to embed your worldview. You're going to consider the values that you represent in the way that you hire people, in the way that you lead your teams, in the way that you design your products, in the way that you deliver your marketing. Ethics can't be tacked on at the end as a marketing choice. It has to be at the core. That's what we talk about with Coolnomics. With Coolnomics, we're bringing the zeitgeist into the boardroom, not the social team, not the marketing team. I've worked both in a C-suite and I've worked in marketing teams, and we have to have the zeitgeist in the boardroom. It can't be tacked on at the end. If you want incredible transformation, if you want an incredibly successful business, you need to have the zeitgeist in the boardroom. Okay. Also, these words, strategy is sacred. When I write a business strategy, I'm still accessing the place that I accessed when I recorded people's life stories at the end of their lives back when I was an artist. Strategy in business is sacred if you're doing it right. Yes, it's also tactical and practical, but it's beautiful and rich and deep if you're doing it right. Okay, let's talk about some examples of who does this. And again, I want to normalize and acknowledge that this is harder than ever. Patagonia used to be this beautiful sort of utopian, or a black swan, a black sheep. You know, Yvon Chouinard, you need to read his book, his memoir, Let Your People Go Surfing. Really, really great book, and it really helps you understand the basis of his philosophical position and his level of commitment to building a business that is regenerative and sustainable. So Patagonia, you would know it. It's Gorpcore, it's recreational fashion. And now you even got, you know, the men, dude bros on Wall Street wearing Patagonia vests, which is a strange, ironic moment, but the world is ironic. Yvon Chouinard is, you know, one of our leaders, one of our most sort of inspiring leaders in terms of building a business that has philosophy in the heart of it, that we're going to build products that are good for the environment, and also we're going to make good when we get it wrong and when we see ways of iterating. So it is possible to do. Patagonia is very much a Coolnomics business. Very desirable product, cool AF. I own some Patagonia. It's a really cool brand. Like, you can't pretend to be cool. It's either cool or it's not. They've done a good job of having a foothold in creating hot products for the market that are also sustainable and economically considered. And having responsibility and reverence alongside cool is the only way to succeed in this modern economy. Okay, our friends Ben and Jerry, Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield, you've got to listen to the episode of How I Built This, where, what's his name? Guy Raz, great interviewer, interviews Ben and Jerry, and they tell the story of being best friends in high school, sitting on the side of gym class and making friends. Then they end up building a multi-billion-dollar company that was bought by Unilever, an ice cream company. But it's a classic example of a Trojan horse. Ice cream that is delicious. If the ice cream tasted crap, this wouldn't work. If it had branding that wasn't desirable, this wouldn't work. But guess what? It's yummy ice cream, cookies and cream, alongside, and I've got a little caveat I'm going to add in a moment, but it has been alongside hardcore political activism, Black Lives Matters, Palestine, absolutely uncompromising in terms of their social contribution and their zeitgeist position. Now, which was even more incredible given that they were bought by the conglomerate Unilever, and somehow they retained their autonomy in terms of their political activism, and Unilever enabled them to do that. That never happens. Usually with a broader, when you're acquired by a larger company, you lose all of your social power. This was retained until recently. Ben Cohen has actually stepped away from, actually no, Jerry. Oh, I'm suddenly forgetting now. One of them has stepped away from the business. I think it's actually Ben Cohen has stepped away from the business so he can keep, because there's been a change because of the conflict, because of what's happening in Palestine. And Ben and Jerry's position on it, Unilever did actually fire their CEO, and Ben and Jerry's don't have the social and political autonomy that they used to have. And so Ben Cohen's going out on his own to produce his own ice cream flavors to keep flying the flag in that way. But still, an incredible story. And the fact that they're finding it difficult now is in line with the zeitgeist, that we have increased authoritarianism, we have a flattening of culture, we have a censorship of dissent. So unfortunately, it's part of where the world is at right now, but that's why we need to keep talking about these examples and considering what next. Okay, some ideas for you. This is my second last slide. Do not worry. Okay, where are we at? 8:01. Yeah, 4 more minutes, and then I'll let you go off on your Tuesday evening. Now, some practical tips for you. This is a big body of work. The economy isn't supporting regenerative businesses, I mean, even less than before. So we're just in the philosophical stage. I'm just going to give you some ideas of how you could start thinking in a way. Also, people are doing it. Liquid Death is another one that I want to, you can talk about. That is very contemporary. A cool water brand in aluminium cans that is edgy AF. It is possible. People are doing it. I just don't think they're not thinking about it enough. And also, the economy isn't supporting it. These are 3 things you can start to consider. I just want you to ask your team one bold business question, business design question. What would a regenerative version of our business look like? Again, we want to allow philosophical thinking as business leaders. We can get blocked by, oh, I couldn't do that. That's too hard. I'm paralyzed. Well, you're never going to get there to the actual deployment without starting in the philosophy of it. What would it even look like? I want you to remember about imagination. I want you to give yourself time and space. It's a good time now over Christmas, time and space where we might be having time off from our businesses to think about, in a regenerative future, how could my business be different? Just start there. Then I want you to start mapping through a lens of extraction versus restoration. I want you to start looking at where you're taking. What am I taking from the environment? What am I taking from people? Is there any way that just one of those things, that I'm an extraction point, is there any way that could be a restoration point? Is there any way that could become circular? If I'm taking from my team's creativity, how could I ensure that my team's creativity is regenerated? Or if I'm taking from the environment with this mineral or this raw material, how could I change that material? Or how could I take the waste from the product that I'm producing and give it back to the environment, or turn it into something else that then lives and breathes in a circular manner? We're just starting philosophical, and we're starting with one example with our businesses. And then finally, there's some cute ways you can consider in terms of the activities of your business. Could we start repairing people's products? Could we start reusing what we already have? Could people return their items to us so we can create something new from it, or give it on to another person who doesn't need something new? You know about examples of this in the world. I'm going to encourage you to think about ways you can do this with your business itself. It's just a beautiful space to interact with. Regenerative economics is the future. It is an economic and social imperative. There is no option. It's happening around us. We're in the destruction phase right now of our evolution as a world, this destruction of our current systems. I know the word destruction is very big, but it's okay. I'm just using it in terms of the destruction and creation cycle. That's very normal. It's not easy, but it's normal. Next year's going to be another big year. I don't think it's going to be easy, but it's going to keep moving us forward. We're going to keep iterating. We're on a planet with a society that was always going to iterate. It was always going to destroy itself and then rebuild itself in large and small ways. Get comfortable with the destruction and creation process. Play an active role. Normalize the discomfort of it. Find ways to ascend and build more resilience in your leadership in terms of creativity and business outcomes. Okay, that's it. What's happening next? Well, in 2026, we're going to build a business school for cool people. We're already doing it. We're building our first course for people to learn about how to write a business strategy, to go from zero to writing a business strategy. Coolnomics is the whole body of work, the entire foundational system of thinking through a multidisciplinary lens about how to build businesses that are relevant to the world that succeed. But when we're teaching people things, we need to teach them how to actually write a business strategy, how to actually get into action, how to write a brand strategy that is relevant and desirable, how to write a business strategy, how to build a product and take it to market, how to produce content that is relevant and will work. I think there's a gap in the market for business education that is cool and relevant. When I was doing my MBA, which I really loved, it changed my life doing my MBA. It gave me the grounding and the best practice standard, and it allowed me to understand the paradigm of business in the economy and the capitalist system on its most essential level. But I think what was missing from that was heart and soul, the edge. And also, it's the social side of it as well. I think there's a gap in the space for MBA level business education that also has space for us to consider philosophical ways of thinking about business, where we have a studio for people actually testing out business ideas and actually writing their business strategies and getting feedback in real time so they can accelerate and get an idea into the market, experiment and test and learn and succeed. And it needs to be cool. It needs to be desirable. It needs to be a good hang, in the words of Amy Poehler. So something of that nature is coming next year. This live stream has been a beautiful entry point into the broader world, opening up this live interaction point with the zeitgeist. And I look forward to teaching you more, working with you, collaborating with you, trying and failing and succeeding and helping the world change through the businesses that we run together. Have a great Christmas break. I really appreciate you. Thank you from Fiona and I for joining us this year. Next year's going to be a beautiful, exciting year. Let's have a lovely Christmas time. Take care of yourself. Take care of your families. Feed your imagination. Find your courage. And I'll see you in 2026. Good night.